Alrighty, so if you know me, I've played a stupid amount of franchise mode, and today I want to talk about some of the issues that are currently within franchise mode that I think need a revamp or a change, or just some features that I see in franchise that are they're just lacking something. There's some issues with them, or they're just not good enough for MLB the Show. So I'm hoping that maybe they get a revamp in MLB 20, but we'll have to wait and see. So if you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see some more of it, make sure you hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and enjoy MLB the Show content and also MLB content. And in the comment section today, I want you guys to tell me current issues that you have with the state of franchise. I don't want you to tell me new features, but I just want you to tell me any bugs or problems or just issues with the current features in franchise that we already have. So current issues that you have now with franchise. So with that being said, let's talk about one that's kind of easy to get out of the way right away, and that's sliders. So the sliders, even if you go to just user settings now, are the same as in franchise. So I need to make sure I actually go to sliders. But with sliders, there's different games out there that have different sliders, and some of them even have game specific sliders for franchise or things like that. And one of the sliders that I feel like MLB the Show is missing are like a progression slider. Maybe I want players to progress a little bit slower, or I want them to progress a little bit quicker. I want specific positions to progress a little bit quicker or slower depending on how my franchise is doing. And that's something that I feel like is lacking with the sliders in MLB the Show. Almost every single one of them is gameplay oriented. There's only two, or there's actually only one that is outside of gameplay, and that's the trade frequency. There's no other like franchise sliders that you could like change at all. There's no there's no progression slider like I've mentioned, and that's kind of the big one. And I feel like that's something that could really help with how players progress in MLB the Show. There is training in the game, but I feel like training is it's so hit or miss, and it just doesn't really do its job, and it's a feature that a lot of people don't really use already. And I feel like a player progression system or slider would really help with the way things are change in franchise. And I know I said I didn't really want to talk about new features, but I feel like that would just be something that's already implemented in other sports games. I'll put a screenshot of what Madden does so you guys can see the different position progression sliders, but there's only one franchise slider, and that's trade frequency. And there's no really other like game mode specific sliders. Every single one of them is really just gameplay focused. So I feel like sliders is something that kind of needs a little bit of tweaking, and I feel like if they added a couple that would help with franchise, that would help a lot more. So that's a simple one to get out of the way. The next one I want to talk about is one of the rule changes that happened last year, but I feel like they kind of missed out on it. And the thing is, I know the rule change happened like a week or less than a week before the release of the game, and that's the trade deadline. There's only one trade deadline now in MLB, but in the game there's still two trade deadlines. So I'm hoping that they're able to fix that rule. And another rule that I'm hoping that they change is that we get the 26-man rosters instead of the 25-man rosters. So the 26-man roster obviously happened like the last couple months, so you know it's something that's known and should be fixed for MLB the Show 20. So I'm hoping they stay up to date with all the new rule changes that MLB has, you know, officially confirmed, and I hope that's something that could work out with, or they can make sure that is like kept up to date, just the new rule changes. So that's a small one, but kind of staying on the same lines of trades, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a brand new franchise. I'm just going to load up one of the rosters that I've been using for quite some time. I'm just going to go to the Cubs, and the issues with the trades are, I'll just leave everything as is that whenever I put a player on the trade block and he's a player that I don't want to keep on a roster, I never get any trade offers for them. So I feel like the trade block doesn't ever work. I feel like I'm always getting offers for players that I don't want to trade, which is cool. I like that. I want to be able to have other teams, you know, show interest in players and maybe make some good trades. But like, I'll even put like my top players all from the Cubs, and I'm looking for a starting pitcher, I'm looking for a shortstop, I'm looking for all outfielders. Let's max out the positions that I can get for my seeking, and I'm gonna list all my top players. I'll even list players with like A potential that are on the roster as well. Let's see, Ian Happ's got some good potential, so I'll even list those players. And I rarely ever get like trade offers for these players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate this part because I don't think I'm going to get any trade offers for the players that I have on the block, and I'll see you guys at the deadline day. Alrighty, so after some lighting changes and me trying to fix some things, you guys can see we're at the trade deadline. I am going to stop simulating, and I didn't get a single offer. I didn't get a single one. I can view the trading block, and I can see teams that are interested. So what do I have to do? I have to go out and seek the teams that are interested rather than getting trade offers from other teams. I feel like that's just a small thing that would help with franchise so much. In March to October, you're offered like 1 or 2 trades within that one season that you control, and you know, other teams give you those trade offers. So why am I not able to get trades for players that are on the trading block? I feel like this is a small thing that would make franchise a little bit better. Like I'm openly putting this player on the trade block. Why am I not getting players or teams offering me trades for this player? I feel like that would be something that's helpful. So another thing going off of trades is I'm only limited to 3 players in a trade, which sucks because there are so many times where I'm literally just like a small fraction away from making a trade happen. And unfortunately, I can't do it because I don't have that extra player slot, and I don't want to trade away one of my top players or a top prospect to make it come across. So maybe I'll see if I can find one really quickly. Like Nolan Arenado. I'm assuming like a Chris Bryant would make this close. And then maybe I want to trade. I mean, I guess that trade works. But let's say I want to do like, I don't even want to trade Chris Bryant. Maybe I want to trade like David Bodie, and then I want to trade Ian Happ. You guys can see the budget's a big deal. Or like even if I put in Jason Hayward, say like I'm close to making this trade happen, and a player like Ian Happ or maybe someone like Albert Almora would make the trade work, and that would be a trade I'd be cool with making. A Castellanos, Bodie, Hayward, and Almora to make the trade happen, but I can't do that because I'm limited to just 3 players to make this trade work, which sucks. I feel like I should be able to offer more than 3 players to make a trade happen. So again, another limitation within the trade feature of the game. So we're still kind of talking about money, I guess. And another thing I want to talk about is budgets. Budgets, I feel like, are just a very complicated thing that it looks simple. You know, you see the salaries, you see your revenue, you see your expenditures, which means your cash flow is this. You have a bank balance that I really don't know what you can do with it. I feel like you can purchase stuff in the show shop, but you can never use it. And the budget, it shows this is how much you have to spend per week. But I'm working on yearly salaries. So you're telling me that every time I make a transaction, I have to break everything down into weekly payments so that I understand how much I'm able to spend per week, rather than just saying this is how much you have to spend for the season, work with that. Because now I'm going into the off season knowing I have 7.26 or 726,000 to work per week. Now I got to do some multiplication and some math. I need my accountant to help me out, translate to understand how much I have to spend per year. I feel like that's just something that I shouldn't have to do. Give me my yearly amount that I have left. Give me that 2 million that I have to spend, or that 3 million that I'm able to work with, so that I know what players I can afford and what players I can't. Just give me a yearly figure, not a weekly figure. That'd be such an easy thing to sort out, and it would make the budget system work so much more, and it would just be so easier to understand. So again, just revamp the budget system. It would help with franchise so much. All right, so I have a couple other things really quickly that I want to talk about. Free agent signings. I'm going to put a screenshot on the screen that's most likely going to cover my face and also just the whole screen in general. So free agent signings, I feel like the CPU after a certain amount of seasons, or even if you do like custom rosters and things like that, free agent, like the top two or top 3 free agents are signed, and then outside of that you don't really get a lot of the top free agents being signed throughout the season. And then a lot of the time, because they sit in free agency, they drop in rating, and then they're still not signed in the upcoming free agency periods or even within the next year. So I feel like free agency signings by the CPU are really limited, and unless you go and sign those top players, they're just going to sit there. So on screen now, you're going to see a screenshot of what I did with the video where I turned off all budgets. So all players, like all contracts, were in a possibility. You could just sign whoever, didn't have to worry about money, and you can see that there are top players still available within the first year. And this is a video where I made every player 80 and above a free agent. So you're telling me that top players that are still 90 rated are not being signed by teams who only have 80 rated and below players? You're telling me like a Mike Trout or a top 90 rated player is not going to get signed by a team? It doesn't make any sense to me. So free agency, it's just a really weird thing. You have teams who are signing 7 first basemen that are like 80 and above rated. You have players who aren't getting signed that should be signed. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I feel like the free agency signing stuff is a little bit bugged in franchise. So kind of going off like the whole CPU not making the right signings or anything like that, let's talk about CPU changes. And every franchise that I do, every single one of them, I hit the wrong one. I leave manual on roster, lineup, and pitching changes. The only thing that I leave not manual will be scouting. And even sometimes I leave that on manual and I do it myself. There is rarely ever a time that I will have something on auto in franchise because I want to have full control of my roster. But yet, multiple times throughout my rebuilds, career sims, team builds, or even just other videos, I've had the CPU remove a player from my MLB roster and send them into the AAA and bring someone up from AAA to the MLB roster. It doesn't make sense. If I have full control of my rosters, why is this CPU or the AI, whatever you want to call it, intervening in my squad? I shouldn't have that. I should have full control because I have the setting for manual. The image I'm going to show you probably is the most extreme of the possibilities for it to happen, but I was doing an out of position team build where every single player was out of position. So the CPU would go and change the roster because the player was out of position. And you're going to see Vlad Jr. is one of the best players on the team, but he's only playing 60 games a season just because he was out of position. Well, what if I wanted him to play out of position? What if I wanted him to be in that spot in the lineup, but yet the CPU felt that they should change it, which isn't what I want. I have manual settings. That's why I should have the way it is, not the CPU intervening. There's been so many other times within rebuilds where I have players taken from my MLB squad, put them in the minors, or the minors brought up to the majors just because the CPU intervenes when they shouldn't. So it's something that shouldn't happen. If it's manual set, it should be me controlling it, not the CPU. So that's my take on it. And then the final thing I want to talk about is player regression. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a quick clip from one of my career sims that happened for Vlad Jr., where once he hit 30 years old, he started decreasing in rating, which I thought was a little weird because he had a phenomenal season leading up until this point. So just because he hit his 10th year in the league or he hit 30 years old, he started to decrease in rating, which for me was really weird. And it's not the only time I saw this happen. A lot of the time, players will just decrease in rating just because they hit 30 or 31 or 32. And it just seems really weird. Or once they hit 10 years in the league, that's when they start to decrease. I feel like the whole player progression system is so out of whack in MLB the Show. I don't know if it's the custom rosters we're using or if it's just the system that's implemented in the game. It's just really weird. A lot of players are sitting in the minors for too long, even though they're 80 plus rated, so they're not progressing into the majors. Some players don't really progress in the minors at all. Their fielding stats are always the same. They don't go up. Maybe their contact stats will go up a little bit. They just kind of sit at the same rating. I just feel like it's all out of whack, and there's really no certainty of what's gonna happen. And I understand that's how real life is. That's how MLB works. Baseball in general is kind of a random sport. You really don't know if a player is gonna make it or not. But I feel like this game is even more there's just so much more uncertainty to the way progression works in MLB the Show. You really only have the potential to base your growth off of, and even then you may get like a two or three good seasons out of them, and just because they hit 30 years old, they'll start to decrease. Or you have someone who, like Nelson Cruz, his power will drop by like 10 stats, but he's still gonna hit 70 home runs a season. I know it's an exaggeration, but it's still a little weird how this game just plays out. So for me, it's just strange, the progression system as a whole. So I've already rambled for too much. I've kind of talked about the features that I wanted to cover. I mean, I could go more in depth to everything, but I feel like that's just getting nitpicky. I want to focus on the main things. I think sliders would really help the game. I think the trade system, you know, the trade block, you know, only being limited to 3 players is a big issue. You know, free agency signings don't really make a lot of sense. There's like teams signing 7 80+ free agent first baseman. You'll get like Josh Bell, Rizzo, Freeman, Goldschmidt all on one team, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but they'll do it. Or you'll have players like Max Scherzer, who's in his 36-year-old season, who's still a 90 rated player, and he's sitting in free agency. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You got regression system not making sense, the CPU intervening in lineups. There's just a lot of things wrong with the game currently, and I hope that they can fix it, and I hope that there's these small tweaks to make the franchise better. I think even if they revamped what they currently have with franchise and maybe added 1 or 2 new features to the game mode, it would make it so much better, and the franchise community can really get behind San Diego Studios and what franchise can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and enjoyed the content, and as always guys, let me know in the comment section your thoughts on what you think of franchise now, what you think are some of the issues with franchise now, and if you really want to, give me some new features that you think could be added to the game, but really try to stick to what is currently wrong with franchise. So I hope you did enjoy it, and that's really about it guys. All social media links down in the description below. You can find my most recent video and also a video that YouTube recommends you check out on screen now, and that's really it guys. I hope you did enjoy it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.